Hello, sports fans, and welcome back to Sports on the Spot. My name is Willie Charger, and today I'm going to be joined by Nick James. Later on, Lenny and Ronnie are going to be here to give us their lowdown and rundown on the sports world. Sports, after all, is what we talk about on this show. And there's been a lot going on in the sports world over the weekend. Major League Baseball's coming to a close. The season's just about done. NBA getting ready for the fall to get into gear. And then, of course, you had the opening weekend of the NFL season. Nick, what was the big headline for you over the weekend?
Willie, what stood out to me was Trevor Lawrence getting his first loss, not just as an NFL pro, but and it's a regular season loss, but as a college player and a high school player. So I guess welcome to the NFL, man. This is going to be a long year for you. What'd you notice, Willie?
Well, I really didn't notice too much except the fact that I got these really cool caps in the mail over the weekend. Sent to me by one of my favorite cousins in Texas. He had them custom made that combines the logos of the Padres and the Chargers, my two favorite teams. On the side, he stitched Willie Charger, the professor, and I thought that was really, really cool. I wore the cap watching the first Charger game against the Washington team, and they won. So it's undefeated, and I'm going to continue to wear the cap. I think they have the Cowboys this weekend, so hopefully the cap will stay undefeated.
Looks good on you, Willie. I did notice that the SD on the bolt, and at first I was thinking, isn't that the LA Chargers? But no, that's really cool hybrid. Good that your cousin's a big fan of the show.
Oh yeah, and Gigi Masters, San Antonio, that's where he is. So if you want to buy some custom-made caps, that's the way to go. I could talk about my Charger gear all day, but I want to spend some time to give to Lenny as he does his little lowdown. So take it away, Lenny.
Well, it's finally happened. Major League Baseball announced recently that it's testing robot umpires for calling pitches. Look, nobody's more of a baseball traditionalist than me, so this may surprise you, but I, for one, am all over this idea. Some people say using robots to call balls and strikes destroys the purity of the game. Really? Let's face it, even good umpires make bad mistakes, and in what universe do mistakes contribute to purity? Just think about how many games have been decided by bad calls. I'm thinking about how many times I've been forced to dump my beer, one that I paid for, by the way, on another fan because we disagreed with the home plate umpire's unreliable call. Well, with RoboUmp, that all goes away. No more controversies in baseball, ever. That's because every call will be accurate. And how is being accurate not an improvement over being inaccurate in any endeavor? That's why I propose taking this principle a step further and introducing robo-players. Think about it. No sport's more full of fumbled plays than baseball, even among the top players. There are so many errors, in fact, that they put them up on the scoreboard like it's something to be honored. Why do we tolerate that when it's such a solvable problem? Well, picture robo-fielders. They'd be like Roombas, except super quick and fitted with baseball mitts to vacuum up grounders and fly balls without fail. The battles on the field would be beyond epic. Imagine pitting a robo-pitcher that's programmed to never allow a hit against a robo-batter programmed to always get a hit. Just think about that. In 150 years of Major League Baseball, only 23 times has a perfect game been pitched. Well, with robo-players, every game will be perfect at every position. Folks, like most of my ideas, I think you'll agree this one's a no-brainer.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Lenny. Very insightful and analytical, as always. Nick, I wanted to spend some time talking about the NFL opening weekend and began by talking about my San Diego Chargers, who pulled off a very close victory over a very, very good Washington team on the road at FedEx Field. It was a very uncharger-like victory for me. First of all, they won. It was a close game, but the special teams was great. There were no big gaffes that they made. Special teams last year was a real thorn in the side for the team. you have a young coach in Brandon Staley who had a lot of confidence in the ability of his young quarterback, Justin Herbert. What really struck me was the last drive of the game. The Chargers are holding on to a 20-16 lead. They get the ball on their own 12-yard line with like 6 minutes, 43 seconds to play. And Herbert, all he does is lead the team on some 60-yard drive and manages to eat up the rest of the clock and go into the victory formation. What really struck me was he made 4 third down passing completions, fairly long yardage, beginning with the first one. I think it was something like 1st and 15 on his own 12-yard line, and he finds Keenan Allen for a 16-yard gain. Later, he finds Mike Williams for a 20-yard gain when he needed 15, and he threw one into J.D. Hill. It was amazing. It was really, really nice to see the Chargers at the end of the game. What was your impression of the game, Nick?
I mean, that first drive, Willie, looked great. We came out swinging. We had rushing. We had passing. And then as soon as Fitzpatrick went out, it was interesting how the momentum seemed to change. But that's what you were saying. Didn't look like the Chargers we know. Usually they fold and can't hang on to those tight games. I think they lost 6 games last year by 7 points or fewer. That's the trend over the last few years. Derwin James is back. I saw a stat with Pro Football Focus where he had the highest rated or highest coverage rating for week 1 of all NFL defenders. So he's back in form, looking good. Got to tell you, the drops were worrying me a little bit. I don't know if that's just a lack of preseason or just, getting the first game jitters out, but it was just really hard to watch all those drops. Justin Herbert had a really good stat line. That could have been better minus those drops.
I was about the only negative. He did throw an interception. That was the one pass I think he would have wanted to get back. But overall, I mean, he manages to lead the team to victory, throwing a touchdown pass. I think the announcer said that he's thrown a touchdown pass in like 15 out of the 16 starts that he's had in the NFL, which is pretty amazing. Maybe Patrick Mahomes did something better like that when he first started. It seems like every time they say something about some rookie quarterback who did fantastic things the first 3 years, they always mention Mahomes. And here's Herbert, right, almost in the same sentence. So we'll see what happens there in the future with Justin. But I think this guy Herbert is special. There's a lot of good young quarterbacks in the league, but this guy, he really stands out. Much impressed with his performance over on Sunday against the Washington football team. Okay, we are back. And Nick, I wanted to talk some more about the NFL and some of the games that happened this past weekend. There are a lot of really good games that happened. The 49ers managed to survive a late Detroit comeback and win their first game. Of course, you have the Bucs who kicked the whole thing off on Thursday night, defeating the Cowboys in a nail-biter as Tom Brady came back and does what Tom Brady always does, manages to lead a drive to win the game at the very end. The one game that stuck with me, besides, of course, the Chargers, was watching New Orleans and the Packers. Everybody's talking about how bad the Packers played and how Aaron Rodgers was terrible. I'm taking a little bit different take on this. I think the Saints were fantastic. Their defense was lights out. Then they allowed 43 rushing yards, I think 229 total yards the entire game. That they sacked Rodgers twice. They intercepted them twice. On offense, they had 451 yards, and Jameis Winston threw 5 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. We talked about Winston last time, and we mentioned that as long as he keeps his interception total down, the Saints might do something. Nick, what was more impressive and stand out to you, the Saints winning this game or Green Bay getting their butts kicked?
When you spend the whole offseason in turmoil, I could see kind of what happened with the Packers happening. I was super shocked when I turned on that game and all of a sudden the Saints were blowing out the Packers. I thought that I read the score wrong. I was watching the Chiefs-Browns game and would kind of go back and forth. And, I mean, like we said, Jameis got that eye surgery. We're joking. Maybe that'd help him. Maybe it was Sean Payton. I think he didn't even throw more than 20 passes, didn't complete more than 15, and didn't throw for more than, or I don't even think he had more than like 150 yards on the 5 touchdowns. It's crazy how much offense they had, and almost seems how little he did to get so much. And you have Michael Thomas out, so you have Alvin Kamara stepping up too. You have the new tight end and a couple of the younger receivers stepping in. It was really interesting to see. I'd be worried if I were the Buccaneers about having that kind of firepower in the division.
One of the other headlines that struck me over the weekend was the fact that all of the NFL Western teams won over the weekend. In the AFC West, you had the Chiefs, the Broncos, the Chargers, and last night the Raiders managed to beat Baltimore. And the same thing happened in the NFC West with the 49ers, Rams, Seattle, and Arizona all winning. Nick, do you think there's been a real significant power shift here? Are all the teams now going to be coming out of the West?
Well, it's been that way with the NFC West for the last few years. Cardinals had a little bit of a drop off. Niners got hurt. Rams rebounding from the Super Bowl loss, but they've been arguably the toughest division in football. Now we're seeing the AFC West, obviously led by the Chiefs. We've been hyping up the Chargers. I'm not giving too much stake in the Broncos and Raiders. The Broncos beat a really, really, really sad Giants team, and the Raiders got really lucky against a Ravens team that I think slept on them and is still coming back from all their practice injuries.
Enough on the West. What about talking about the East? Is Ronnie around to give us some lowdown on what's going on with the New York Football Giants? Ron?
Hey, guys. Yeah, it's, well, if I had this conversation once, I had it 100 times. It's just nothing new with the New York Giants. I know it's only been one game, but on the other hand, it hasn't been one game. This has been the same old Giants for year in, year out, where they're winnable games. These are the games that you should win at home against the Broncos. Willie, I heard you say earlier there's a lot of good young quarterbacks in this league, and unfortunately, I don't think one of them is Daniel Jones. So I'm kind of wondering why we're missing out here. That fumble that he gave up, in the red zone was just absolutely unacceptable. And I heard something the other day. He actually led the NFL last year in turnovers. So you would think that would be something to pay attention to and correct. And to scramble and give the ball up the way he did it's just embarrassing. I mean, the whole team, the way they played is embarrassing, and it's really unfortunate because I think they have a lot of talent. I don't think they, they're not world beaters, but I think they have the talent to win games, and for some reason they can't get it together. Not like the Jets. The Jets lost, and that's understandable. They just don't have any talent. I think Zach Wilson's going to be a great quarterback someday. They're going to have to build around him, put together a nice line to protect him. And if you're a Jets fan, you're just like, okay, well, we didn't really think we were going to win anyways. But the Giants have the pieces to at least, win 8 games or something and be somewhat competitive. And they just did not. They just totally laid down against this Broncos team. And, the Broncos have a good defense. Bridgewater looked pretty good, but pretty unacceptable. I will say, you guys talked about the NFC West and, watching that Sunday night game with the Rams. And I know that's a tough division. I really think, and I said this a couple of times in my rundown, I think, we kind of have the Rams here in tier 1 and everybody else behind. With Stafford, that was just one game. They haven't even gotten going yet, and they look unstoppable between Stafford and his receiving core and that defense. I really think it's the Rams Super Bowl to lose this year. Again, only one game, but they look like they are the front runners to me.
So besides Tampa Bay, what other team do you see possibly challenging the Rams for the NFC?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, even in the division, I like the Niners. I said that in the rundown. I think the Niners are solid. To be honest, I kind of counted out the Saints, and we'll see, but they still look solid. Obviously, the Bills are in the conversation. They lost week 1, but I think they'll be okay. So those are just a few teams I think that can be competitive. Obviously, we'll have to see what happens. I tell you one thing, I don't think any of them are coming out of the NFC East, though. That's for sure.
NFC East, NFC least. Yeah, they only have Dak Prescott as the real quarterback in that division. I mean, Washington, they lost, of course, Fitzpatrick over the weekend. Who knows what's going on with Philadelphia? Hurts might actually turn out to be pretty good, but right now, I think the Cowboys are the team. I know you have more to talk about the NFL, Ron, so let's just take it straight to your Ronnie rundown.
All right. right, guys. Week 1 is in the books. Bit of a rough week gambling-wise as far as my picks on the show here go. If you are tracking at home, and if you are, you're a loser. I went 1-2. So Falcons didn't work out too well. Giants didn't work out too well. Rams, I hit. And now we're looking at week 2, and I'm going right back to the well. I'm taking Rams -3.5 against the Colts. I think I might end up taking Rams every week, to be honest with you. The Rams look unstoppable. I'm so bullish on the Rams on this show, all off season and leading up to the season, and I just think they're going to be a great team. So I'm going to go Rams -3.5, and I'm probably going to keep taking them until they let me down. So a couple of the interesting lines in after week 1, some of the lines tend to get skewed or inflated. So I'm going to take Vikings +4 at the Cardinals. The Cardinals had a huge win in Tennessee. Vikings had a rough loss at Cincinnati. The Vikings are probably a better team than +4 against the Cardinals, and that could be a little inflated. So I'm gonna take a shot at Vikings +4. Similarly, same thing with the Cowboys. I'm going Cowboys +3 at the Chargers. I got to be honest, the Chargers win in Washington was one of the more impressive wins of the week, in my opinion. That was a gutsy win. The Chargers have had a really rough stretch of losing close games and stuff like that. But again, I think, maybe that's inflated a little bit. The Cowboys, conversely, had a tough loss, and they played really hard. And I think I'm actually a little surprised by the Cowboys. I think they're better than I thought they were. So I'll gladly go Cowboys +3 at the Chargers. So those are my picks. Good luck. Lastly, I wanted to mention my buddy Pasqualino started a GoFundMe to pay for his hair restoration procedure. He had all the money, but then he lost it all in Packers -4. It's kind of a tough break. What can you do? So if you could help out Pasqualino, Patsy, you call him, visit his GoFundMe page, and good luck. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Ron. Great rundown. Our favorite part of the show is coming up now. As you know, the name of the show is Sports on the Spot, and that's because it actually gives you viewers a chance to test our expertise and hopefully to benefit from it, especially mine. This week, we have a question from Peter Puffpath27. And Peter Puffpath27 says, given that both the NFC West and AFC West teams were undefeated this weekend, is it possible that all 4 teams in the division will be in the playoffs? Let me just say I'm super happy we're finally talking NFL because more than any other sport, that's in my wheelhouse. But I'll let you guys answer that first. What do you think?
Well, I think it's very, very possible that all 4 teams could make the playoffs, but it's not going to happen. And it's not going to happen because Denver is pretty bad. They beat the Giants, as Nick mentioned earlier, but the Giants are no good. I think that, if anything, you might have 3 teams coming out of the AFC West. I think the Raiders are very, very good, but they're not going to make it either. You got the Chiefs and the Chargers, and as far as the NFC goes, that's not going to happen there either.
Willie, I disagree with the NFC part. I think that the NFC West is the team in the NFL, or the division in the NFL that could foster 4 teams in the playoffs. Any of those teams could lead the division, but we just saw the Cardinals pick up a whole lot of slack after falling off last year. So I could totally see that division making it, possibly even the AFC North, though they're not all undefeated. I think they're going to also have 4 really strong competing teams that could potentially make it.
Well, I think we should revisit this question in a few weeks after I consult my abacus and have a few more cups of coffee, just trying to figure out the numbers in my head. I guess it is technically possible, although I don't even know that for sure, because if you think about these teams, okay, so they all got to play each other within the division. Let's assume that they each play 6 games in the division. Let's just assume they all split. So right off the bat, each team is 3-3. And then the games outside the division, you got to win the vast majority of those games. And of course, if they don't split, that team that's losing, those division games is far more likely to make the playoffs. So I'd love to dive into the numbers here a little bit more. And like I said, I think we should talk about this in a few weeks and see how likely it really is. Yeah, I think the NFC West probably would have the best chance, but still, I'm not so sure it is possible.
Yeah, it's an interesting trend. There's so many variables here because there's so many teams. I think maybe the dark horse you guys haven't even talked about is the Bruins, and I feel like they got a lot of talent, and I think they're going to be scoring a lot of goals.
Well, you know what I will say? I would say actually, as bad as they are, the NFC East, maybe we can move them to the CFL, and then they would all probably make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a whole different set of divisions too.
They are really good goalies in the division too. We could continue with this banter all day, but unfortunately we are out of time, and that's going to have to be it for this week's show. I wanted to thank everybody for tuning in and reminding everybody to like, comment, and subscribe to our show if you have a chance. If you have a Sports on the Spot question, I know we've been getting so many of them, but if you have one, you could submit it to the Sports on the Spot show at gmail.com or ask the question in the little box in our YouTube channel, and we will try to answer your question. That's going to be it for today's show. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you all next time.
Unbelievable.